What's going on, Internet? Iron Jordan here. So, today I took to Facebook to ask the community a question. I was trying to get ideas for videos. I was trying to, probe the community a little bit and see what people thought about different things. So, when I got on, I said, hey, if there was, if you could change an existing rule or add a rule to this game, what would it be? And what I was trying to do with this was that I was trying to see, games are not perfect. And whether the game may be 3 months old or 25 years old, card games can always be improved. In fact, we've seen that happen very recently. A couple years ago, or a year and a half, 2 years ago, Magic the Gathering got their new London Mulligan rule, which was designed to, get rid of the amount of non games or minimize the amount of non games in Magic the Gathering. Now, that had a positive and negative effect on different formats, but for the most part, I would say that the community overall liked it. Now, that came 25 years in the game's history, 25 years in that game's history, it got a Mulligan rule update, and it gets other updates. They changed the text on some cards to make different creatures, different creature types, and all that other stuff. Magic goes through changes, and it's old. It's set in stone. Then you have a game like Dragon Ball Super, where Dragon Ball Super got some major rule changes, 3 or 4 months after its release. And so it's never too early or too late to change the rules of the game to make the game more understandable or more favorable for players, or to change rules to balance something out, right? So I decided that I would be the first one to throw my, suggestion in the hat and say, I think I would like to see a mulligan rule implemented into this game. Specifically because I've run into a lot of non games in my testing, and it mostly comes from drawing zero rookies, right? So I've played, full disclosure, since the pre release period, which is, we are not even a month out from. We are about 3 weeks out from. In that 3 week period, I have done a lot of testing. I would argue that it is not a stretch to say that I have probably tested more than 99% of the community in person, as I have put in 12-hour days of testing on my days off and stuff like that with a small group of friends. I have gotten in literal hundreds of Digimon card game matches in person. So I have a pretty good feel, I think, on why I think the game needs a mulligan rule. Now, I'm not saying that I know better than everybody, but what I'm going to do in this video is lay out my evidence to why I believe a mulligan rule would be good for this game. I then finished off the post by saying, what about you? Tell me something you'd change about this game and that you believe would make it better. So before we get into the mulligan thing, and we will touch on the mulligan, it is our main topic of the video today, I wanted to highlight some responses that some people had. And I'm not going to scroll through the whole Facebook post because, as you can see, there's over 200 comments. But there were quite a lot of suggestions. There was one for drawing your hand before your life. This would probably go hand in hand with the mulligan rule because it would be harder to mulligan if you. It would also mess with the ratios a little bit too. So some people, especially Dragon Ball Super players, are used to drawing and then putting out their life. So you're doing the exact opposite. So that's more of like a convenience thing. I mean, I don't think it would be a bad change, and I don't think that it would hurt anything to change that. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. That'd be all right. A sideboard, which is definitely, we already know that events are going to be best of three. We already know that official events are going to be, best of three. And a lot of people who have played card games for the majority of their life or for a long time, I've been playing card games for years, and every card game that I've played with best of three has a sideboard. In fact, the only game that I've ever played that had no sideboard, now mind you, I don't play Pokemon, but the only game I've ever played that had no sideboard was also best of one, and that was Panini Dragon Ball Z. Now, Panini Dragon Ball Z is a very luck stacky game, and I mean, that may be a flaw, but the game's still good. Anyway, the next thing that was actually pretty highly requested is a higher starting security. A lot of people feel like 5 security is a little low. I don't know if I quite agree or disagree with that. I think that I would be okay with them increasing security. I also think I would be completely fine with it staying the way that it is. Although that was definitely requested by a handful of people. A no cutting rule, which was in reference to cutting your opponent's deck, which I don't foresee that ever happening. I also don't think it's a very good rule. It prevents stacking. In fact, most card games, I know DPS has this, and I know that Magic has this. It is your opponent's decision if they want to cut your deck or not, and you have to let your opponent if they want to. Same thing I think in Yu-Gi-Oh, that there's actually in the rulebook, like, hey, you have to let your opponent cut your deck if they want to. So I know DBS is a rule like that. I saw somebody advocating for counter attacks like we have in DPS. So you could like stop attacks by pitching a card from your hand or using energy to, or I'm sorry, memory to pitch a card from your hand. Not quite sure how that would work on your opponent's turn. Maybe you just give your opponent more memory to use on their turn if you use a counter attack or something like that. I thought that was an interesting suggestion. But the most interesting one that I found that actually kind of goes along with the Mulligan rule is that one guy suggested that instead of putting out 5 cards in your security and drawing 5 cards, he suggested that you draw 10 cards, put 5 cards from your hand in that 10 card hand in your security, and keep the other 5. Now, for obvious reasons, I don't think that Bandai will do this. I think that is incredibly broken. Now, obviously, every player would get to do this. Like you, if you wanted to stack your Trump swords and your Gaia forces and stuff like that, I just think that it would be incredibly broken. So I'm not. While I think that would be really fun, I'm not in favor of it. However, I mean, if they did it, I wouldn't quit the game. I think it would actually make the game pretty fun or more fun. Uh, Now, talking about the actual Mulligan rule. So what I have proposed is when you draw your 5, you look at your hand and decide all or nothing. Now, when we're looking at Mulligan rules in different games, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have one, and we'll get to Yu-Gi-Oh here in a second because there's a deeper analysis on that. Magic has one at the cost of 1 card in your hand every time that you mulligan in the London Mulligan rule. So what you do is you draw 7. If you don't like it, you put it back. You draw 7, and then you keep 6. You put 1 card at the bottom of your deck, and then if you do it again, you put 2 cards at the bottom, right? And you do that until you have no hand if you want, right? So the Magic rule is pretty good for Magic, but it's because Magic has a land system. It has a land-based system, so it kind of needs it because you need to be able to find your lands to actually play the game. Now, people will say this about rookies in this game, but lands are even more so critical in Magic. So you can actually build your deck in the appropriate way where you don't get, mana screwed in Magic. Building a good mana base is, in my opinion, a little bit easier than making sure you see your rookies every game in this game. So moving on from that, you have DBS, which the DBS Mulligan I think is just not going to be good for any game except for DBS. DBS is you look at your 6 cards and you go, okay, cool. I want to keep these 3. I'm going to put the other 3 back and then I'll draw 3 cards. And so it creates a really, really consistent feeling game. But DBS is such a power creep game already, and it really has been a pretty powerful game since the beginning, that the Mulligan rule in that game fits it, fine. It's very powerful for sure, but it fits it. Excuse me, guys. I've been under the weather for the last couple days. That's why I haven't been putting videos out. But I'm trying to get to more of these videos now. Anyway, so moving on to Digimon. Now, people will say you draw the same amount of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh as you do in Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't need a Mulligan rule. Well, what I would say to that is that Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot of 1 card engine starters. For example, you can draw 4 hand traps or 3 hand traps, a trap card, and an engine starter, and you can just go ahead and play your game. On top of that, there are a lot of engine searchers in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very easy to find all your combo pieces. The deck size is smaller in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's only 40 cards in the deck. On top of that, the limit is smaller. There's 3 cards that you can play maximum of each card, of each copies, unless the card's limited or whatever, right? So, what I would say to this is that Digimon is a game that really does rely on you to hit your rookies. Now, not every deck needs that. Obviously, Megazoo doesn't play a lot of rookies, or any at all, I don't think. I haven't actually seen a Megazoo list. I've played against it a couple times, but I've never actually broke it down and looked at it. Um, but when you actually look at the game, I'm gonna show you guys something. So this is the deck that I played at a local tournament actually last night. Today is Wednesday, the 16th of December, and this is the list that I played at our local tournament. And there will be a local report out for this, and this video or this deck did top 3, so it will be in the video as well. But in this list, I'm running 18 rookies. And in my round 2 matchup against the guy who eventually went on to win the tournament, I got 2-0'd for a simple reason. Both games, I saw 0 rookies. Both games, I had no way to play the game. In fact, in one of my games, as you can see down here, I'm playing 2 Beelzemon, 3 Piedmon, 2 Trump Sword. In one of my games, I drew two Beelzemon, two Trump Sword, and a Piedmon as my starting five. I think this was game two. Actually unplayable. You can't cast these two, they're 12 drops, and there's nothing to target with the Trump Swords. So I actually just lost the game by having nothing to play. So people will say, hey, you got to play your hand out, and or hey, you got to make your ratios better. But in my case, it was really just very poor luck. Now, I am 100% sure that if I had had a mulligan in this game, that I would have been able to actually play. And my opponent said the same thing. Shout out to our buddy Adam at Gamers Alley Locals. He had said the same thing. He wished that we actually had, a game, and we actually played after that. After our round was over, and ended up splitting. We got to play two extra games, and when we actually got to play games, it was a very 50-50 matchup with the deck that he was playing, and so I have confidence that it would have been a lot different. Now, to go ahead and put this out there, I have been pro mulligan rule since the first time I played this game. It was just last night when I played, I really felt it 2 games in a row in a round where I'm playing a deck that, like, the ratios are really good in this deck. Like 18 rookies, I'm seeing them most hands. Most hands I'm going to see rookies. However, it's just having it happen that 2 times where it's like, man, and we even broke it down. I did the math. It's a 36% chance to draw a rookie, and obviously that goes up if you don't draw a rookie, and it goes down if you do draw a rookie. So out of a 5 card hand, you have a cumulative 180% chance to see a rookie. So there's the math behind that. So it has nothing to do with my ratios or like deck building or anything like that. It's just poor luck, unfortunately, that got me last night. And that is just one of those things where you really don't like to see that. As a card game player who's played DBS, I've played Panini Dragon Ball Z, I played Magic, I've played Yu-Gi-Oh, all these other card games, right? I have played basically every card game at some level except for Pokemon. I really do not like non games. I really do not like just sitting down and winning or losing for free. Those just feel really bad. I think the skill of the player should come first. And obviously, deck building is part of that skill. But whenever you're rocking 18 rookies in your deck and you're still not seeing them, there's not much you can do. Now, obviously, you can play through that. And I have played through that in a lot of scenarios. However, you put yourself at a really big disadvantage whenever you play without going up your chain in this game, right? So if I have a blocker in my hand and it costs 5 to hard cast it, and that's the only thing I have in my hand, I'm going to be in top deck mode until I find a rookie. That's the first thing. So I'm going to be behind a turn on my opponent by putting my Digi up into the field of play. And if I'm going second, I was already a turn behind anyway. If I'm going first, I just put my opponent ahead of turn on doing that. Also, you give your opponent a lot of memory to work with. Like if you're going first, you go, oh, I got no rookies. I'll just slap this blocker down. Cool, there's 5 energy, buddy. And a lot of decks can do a lot with that. You give an Omnimon player five memory, and they are just licking their chops at you, buddy. So it's just one of those things where I really feel like, for the sake of this game's health, there should be a mulligan rule. I also do believe there should be a sideboard at some point, like once we start getting competitive stuff. I think the sideboard is less necessary, but it is a skill to be able to sideboard properly and to be able to build a proper sideboard whenever you're talking about competitive card games. And so yeah, that's just my thoughts on this. I didn't mean for this video to be like a, hey, mulligan is the right way kind of deal, but and I really wanted to get more suggestions from the community. There was actually a really fun one of somebody saying that when you lose, you have to sing the Digi Rap from the movie or whatever, and I really love that. But I'm sorry. That's the video, guys. I let me know what you guys think. I am a big proponent of the mulligan rule. I'm not gonna like yell at you and call you stupid if you're not for one. It obviously, I would like to see one to have fewer non-games, and I think that would be good for the overall health of the game. I think that was one of Panini Dragon Ball Z's problems, is that if your opponent just goes first, draws 3, and goes I enter, and you draw no blocks, you can just lose against a lot of decks. So I don't really love that idea in a lot of card games. But let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Subscribe if you want to see more Digimon content. I'm going to be putting out another video probably tomorrow or maybe even later tonight. Who knows? And yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to stop rambling, and I'll see you in the next video.